Welcome to the Waiting Warriors podcast. I'm Michelle Voller. I'm an Army wife of over 8 years, a mom of 4 little girls, and a huge believer that supporting your military or first responder loved one is way easier if you connect with a community. Along with sharing some of my insights and journey, I have set out to interview waiting warriors around the world so we can all learn about their triumphs and their struggles. Together, we can learn to do more than just survive. We can thrive, and that is what being a waiting warrior is all about. Hey, waiting warriors out there, welcome to another week on the Waiting Warriors podcast. I'm super excited today because today's the first time we're switching over how I'm recording these episodes, and we're actually doing video now. So if you're just listening, that's still great. If you want to hop over to, I was going to say Instagram, YouTube, that is cool. I just thought it would be a fun new element so then you could see the people that I get to see. I think it's fun to connect with military spouses and other waiting warriors that way. So today we have Yvonne Coomber. Welcome to the show, Yvonne.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So you're quite the lady. I'm really excited to have you on and share you with the waiting warrior community. Yvonne is she didn't say this in her little bio question thing, but I will. She is the 2020 Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year Army Branch winner. If you haven't heard about that, it's a really awesome program that helps highlight military spouses who are doing good in the community. And Yvonne is doing so much good that she won the whole Army branch. And she's doing that good with her nonprofit that she runs, Operation Deploy Your Dress.
Yes.
It's a really incredible mission that you have with that. Her husband has been active duty for almost 20 years, which hua to that. And he's currently in the middle of a 14-day quarantine, which just,
Not hua to that.
No happiness towards that. She has 2 sons, a 22 and a 15-year-old. So like you have done so much. I'm guessing though that 20 years or nearly 20 years as a military spouse, that hasn't just been like smooth sailing. How many
It has not all been rainbows and butterflies.
But you love it. You've been doing it for 20 years.
I absolutely love it. I mean, I love this lifestyle. I love the community that comes along with it, the friends that you make, the family, the friends that turn into family, and absolutely wouldn't change it.
Yeah. So how many deployments have you done in 20 years?
So we've done 4 long deployments that were a 9-month, 2 1-year, and a 15-month.
I just cannot, I'm really, really glad that the military is shortening the deployments. I don't know if anybody else heard, but I say recently, but I feel like COVID has really morphed my time awareness. It was during COVID that Army at least came out with we're reducing deployments. They want to keep it at, closer to 6 months when possible. And I was like, yeah, that's better, because I hear stories about your 15-month deployments, and that just seems nuts to me.
Well, and when he left on that 15-month deployment, it was a 9-month deployment. And then it was 9 to 12. Well, 12 months. Well, actually 15. It's like, I feel like I've been bamboozled in this one.
Yeah. You couldn't even emotionally prepare for yourself.
I mean, but really, do you ever emotionally prepare for that?
I feel like having a slight countdown. I know you never know exactly when they're coming until it's I said for our deployment, I am not counting down until he tells me he's on the plane. You know what?
We'll count down the hours.
From Kuwait, not even leaving the original country. They need to be in an actual US base coming across the Atlantic for me to start counting down.
Yes.
That's just me.
No,
So
I get it.
what has been the most, let's call it eventful deployment for you?
So they all have their levels of eventfulness, but I think our last deployment was definitely um, the most, yeah, eventful for lack of better words. We were living in DC, and he was scheduled to take command in Colorado at Fort Carson, and that command got bumped up by about 6 months, and so he had to leave early. We were going to leave as a family. We were going to leave DC as a family and move at Christmas time. He was going to take command in February and deploy with his unit immediately. But at the time, our oldest son was a junior in college, and he
Right.
was going to school in DC, and he was just 3 weeks, I think, maybe a month before we were supposed to leave DC. He was actually diagnosed with cancer. And
Oh,
so we quickly made a plan as a family that my husband would leave and he would go to Colorado and take command, and myself and my younger son would stay in DC, so that my son could so that our older son could be treated at Walter
mhm.
Reed Hospital, where, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to have something like that happen and you can be treated there, why not? I wasn't going to,
Mhm.
not that they couldn't have treated him well here in Colorado, but why were we going to take him from the best army hospital or best military hospital?
Yeah.
And so we went ahead and stayed there while he did his cancer treatment.
Wow.
And so we had that. Then, my husband took command and deployed, and then towards the tail end of that deployment, our younger son decided that he needed a little bit of attention, and
Oh,
so he actually got a really bad bacteria infection in his body that spread to his blood, and he got sepsis and was hospitalized at the children's hospital for 10 days, where, I mean, he spiked a fever over 107, like 6 different times. His highest was
that's possible?
107.8. It was insane. Like, they would like take his temperature every which way they possibly could whenever that would happen. Like, this can't be right. And well, unfortunately, it was right. And so yeah, we didn't know if he was going to survive that. And so
Yeah.
it was a way too much excitement for one family to have during a deployment. Oh, during that, sorry, between both of my children deciding to get sick, we moved cross country without my husband, and the moving company decided to destroy 90% of our stuff or lose it. So we also had that to contend with.
And we're just like, mhm, mhm. We
Yeah,
just,
I'm like,
so nice people.
so I like to joke around and say that when you're going through a deployment, you get a deployment pixie. It's not a fairy, because fairies are nice and sweet.
Right?
Pixies are more like mischievous and want to like wreak havoc in your life. So I get this drunk pixie every time my husband deploys, and it just wants to screw with me just to see how much that we can take. And this pixie had way too much to drink, and he just did a doozy on our family for this deployment.
Had you come up with that pixie thing before this last deployment, or was this just like, "No, this has to be
So
what's going on?"
yes, I mean, because people always talk about Murphy's Law, right? Oh, Murphy's Law, when your
Mhm.
service member deploys, the car breaks or this or that. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with this person named Murphy. It's this drunk pixie that just follows you during deployment. That's what it is. So yes.
I like your description way better than Murphy's Law because, like,
Yeah. Like, it sounds
I
so
feel
like
like it's
benign, right? Murphy's
yeah,
Law. You can't really do anything about. No,
yeah.
it's this drunk pixie that's just having way too much fun with me.
I feel like we can explain that better, like, I still don't know. I know what Murphy's Law is. I have experienced it and lived it, whatever it actually is. But the drunk pixie trying to screw with my life
Yeah.
makes so much more sense of just say like that's how it is. I really like that one.
Yeah, because can't you see it? Like, just as you're catching your breath from one thing and coming up from the waves, this little drunk pixie is kind of floating around, like, oh, yeah, you getting comfortable? Here you go. Try this one now. So,
Yeah, that's true. And it's like you watch, I don't know, I'm picturing that movie with Anne Hathaway. Oh, what's it called? When she like Ella something.
Ella Enchanted.
Do you know? Yeah, like when she's under the truth spell or whatever, and that pixie that she is, or the fairy she's chasing is like all drunk and they're doing mistakes. Yeah, it makes sense. And
Drunk Pixie.
they probably think that they're doing us a favor, just like that fairy did.
There you go. Maybe the
I
drunk pixie's name is Murphy. Maybe that's where Murphy's Law comes from.
love
I called my drunk pixie many things, but Murphy was not one of them.
that would be a nicer name to say.
Yes.
Okay, so back to what your pixie did to
Sorry.
you.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. That's too good not to share. Your son had cancer though. Like that alone is huge and terrifying.
Absolutely.
Like a whole slew of every emotion that is difficult and hard, but then you did it alone. And like was his whole treatment done and then he was just in the clear by the time your husband got deployed, or was it just
By the time we
like
moved, by the time we left, but not by the time my husband left, no.
how did you handle that alone? Because I'm assuming
I will tell you, I wasn't alone. I mean, that is, I talked about it at the beginning of this about the military community. And although I didn't have my husband there, I had a slew of military family that was around me and that was there to say, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm bringing you some baked spaghetti. Shut up and eat it. Whatever it was. I had people that were there to make sure that I was okay and make sure that I wasn't curled up in the fetal position in my closet eating pie,
Mhm.
and just make sure that whatever we needed that maybe I wasn't able to do on my own, they were there to say, okay, let us help pick up the slack. And even not just the ones that were right there physically in DC with us, but military family from, previous installations or that had left DC already, they were there to reach out and say, I'm sending you guys gift cards so that you can go and get some Chick-fil-A, or my son was going to school in DC and we were living in Arlington, and he had to move out of the dorms during that time because of his immune system. And
Right.
so, but this happened in December and classes started in January. He had already selected his classes for that year. So his classes for that semester happened to like start at 8:30 in the morning during DC traffic hours.
Ooh.
And get out at like 3:30, and I was having to drive him in and out of the city because I couldn't put him on public transportation. He couldn't live in a dorm. He sure as heck couldn't go on public transportation. And so I had friends that said, hey, we're going to send you some Uber gift cards because you can't always drive into the city. You've got another kid to take care of. So just put him in an Uber if you have to, and we'll pay for it or whatever. And so they just, anything that they could think of, even things that I couldn't have imagined that somebody would step up and do for us, they were doing for us.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we were able to get through it. There's no way that, somebody can handle this on their own, especially whenever their significant other has to be pulled out to go and, duty calls. This is their job and they have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was because of that military community and that military family that we were able to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have a question. I hear that often, right? Like military family is everything, which I totally agree with, but I have heard from newer military families that they don't have that. So what's the difference can you think of, either like that you saw between when you were brand new and you now, or just what you see the difference between spouses of more seasoned spouses, because like they always have that family, like they just do, versus new spouses don't
Yeah.
always, and then you find the ones that are struggling, they're not. Like what is the difference between those two groups?
So I will tell you what I see, and I don't know if this is necessarily the case across the board, but what I see is a lot of come in maybe seeing this military career that their service member has as their job, not my life.
Okay.
Whereas, we embrace this from the get-go. This is us. This is how, this is our family's lifestyle. We embrace the lifestyle. It wasn't, hey, this is your job and you do it from 9 to 5, or if you have to work later or whatever. And I have my own life, and never in between should the two meet. We jumped in head first and we're all in from the get-go. And I'm not saying that one way is better than the other, but I think that that's where you don't get that tight military community, is when they're not embracing that whole lifestyle. I mean, my husband is currently in battalion command, and we see that we actually have a lot of families that do want to get involved and be part of the family cohesiveness. Right now with COVID, it's making it difficult. But then you also have those families that are just like, that unit isn't my family. That unit is my husband's work. And so to try and pull them out and say, hey, give us a chance, come out and see the cool things that we're doing, or the cool things that we want to do, or whatever. Some of them, it's just hard to kind of crack into it. And I think part of it too is that, they're kind of warned by previous people who have had a bad experience, like, hey, stay away from the SFRG, or stay away from the spouses club. That's where all the drama happens, or whatever. And those are stereotypes. Yes, stereotypes exist for a reason, but they don't exist across the board. It's not a blanket thing. And it's something that I try to tell younger spouses all the time, is give it a try, and give it a try at each installation. If it doesn't work out at that installation, that's fine. But then try it again at the next time. Don't say, well, the last installation, the unit sucked, or the SFRG wasn't great, or the spouses club was drama. Like, don't let what happened at a previous installation determine how you're going to approach a new installation, is what I try to explain to people, because you may end up finding your best friends. You may end up finding your lifelong friends that become family. And if you write it off before you even get a chance, then you're going to miss out on something.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense. We got that advice because we had been enlisted, but then my husband did ROTC. And so from his ROTC group, though, a lot of people went active duty before we did because of his chaplain schooling. There's a lot more school, other than just your bachelor's. And so we had friends who had, by the time we came active duty, they had 2 or 3 years, and they all said the same thing. You cannot determine your job, you cannot determine what your family life is going to be like by your first commander, your first company, your first unit. You've got to experience a few cycles before you can even come close to judging the whole. Because guys, there are how many thousands? I don't even know the number. I know it's 1% of the population, but that is a huge amount of people. You can't just bundle everybody together. That's ridiculous.
Well, and not only that, is you may live off post. You may not live on post. You may live in a neighborhood that has a bunch of civilians, but those civilians could become your family. Those neighbors that don't just be well, we're only going to be here 2 years, so what's the point in investing, right? If you do that, you're never going to invest in anything, because you're only going to be anywhere for 2 years, or for 3 years, or for 1 year, or whatever. Jump in, give it a shot, try and make the best of wherever you are. Don't ever wish away 1 year or 2 years or whatever of your life, because you're not going to get that back. So make the best of it, make some connections, and then move on if it wasn't your favorite place. I mean, we've been to places that weren't my favorite place, but I had great memories from those places, and there were great things that I liked about those places. And then we've been to other places that I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go there, and when I got there, I didn't want to leave there. And so, it's just about what you make of it. And if you go in with a bad attitude, it's going to suck.
Yeah. I'm curious, what are some of the places that you didn't want to go to, but then
didn't want to leave? Yes. People are often very surprised by this, but our favorite place, I think as a family, we would all agree, the favorite place we've ever been in the military was stationed at Fort Irwin, California, in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
That's
and
awesome.
it was all about the people and the community. I still speak to these friends. We left there almost a decade ago, and I still speak to these friends on a weekly, if not daily basis. We travel to see each other. We get together as families. We get together as just the spouses, whatever. We had such a great group of friends there that I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything.
Yeah. Okay, so people who don't know Fort Irwin, and I know Fort Irwin because I grew up in Southern California, and my mom's family is in Utah. So we would drive up the I-15 a few
And you
times a
would
year.
pass the turn
Okay,
off?
I did not we literally made that drive 3 to 5 times a year, depending, like, all the time, for
Yeah.
I lived at home for 18 years. I did not know that Fort Irwin was there, though,
Yes.
until we joined the Army and they asked us, like, "Here's a list of all the bases. Where do where do you wanna go?" type of a thing. I had no idea because on that point of the drive, there's just nothing, and there's,
There's
like,
nothing.
random roads that go off, and then is it Barstow or Baker that it's closest to?
It's Barstow,
Barstow,
which
yeah.
is a little bit of a less than desirable place.
Yeah,
So
and that's, like, the
I
big
was I
city.
was trying to put it nicely, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
so Barstow has a Walmart
Mhm.
and a McDonald's, and that's pretty much about it. You blink and you pass Barstow, but that's where you turn off of. So I-15 is
Yeah,
the highway that goes from Las Vegas to Los Angeles.
right.
And so you turn off halfway between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. You're in the middle of the desert,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah,
turn off on this desert road that's just one way going one lane going one lane going the other way. And you see this sign that says, absolutely nothing for the next 34 miles. And what it's trying to tell you is if you need gas, you need to turn back around and get it. If you need food, turn back around and get it. But like we all are like, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Absolutely nothing.
yeah,
And you drive down this road, and I've told this story a few times. It's just my husband and I for the first time because the kids, we have family in Southern California as well. So my kids are with our
okay.
family. And we're driving down
Mhm.
this desert road, and you kind of come up over a little hill, and you see this like dust bowl of a little installation out in the middle of the desert. And there's 7,000 people that are stationed out there,
Uh-huh.
tiny little place. And he looked at me and he said, I am so sorry. My kids are going to hate me. And I said, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. I'm trying to be positive, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Don't worry. And I remember looking out the passenger's window with him at the driver's side. So my head not looking at him so that he can't see that I'm lying to him. Because the whole time I'm thinking, forget your kids. I'm going to freaking hate you. Like, is all I could think. Right? But I'm saying, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. And I mean, when people hear that they're being sent out to Fort Irwin, California, it's like they feel like they're being sent to prison, like it's a death sentence or something.
Mhm.
And so I try to now, after having that experience, tell them like it's actually really good. Like the community that you meet there and the friends that you make there are great. The MWR is amazing because there's nothing out there. So they do
Yeah,
put on a lot of programs for you. The installation really does a good job of taking care of their families.
yeah,
And so, I think it's just you make the best of it. If you're a shut in and you don't leave your house, well, of course you're going to be miserable there. But if
yeah.
you get out and you meet people and you make friends and you have wheelbarrow races in the middle of the road like we did, then you're going to be fine and you're going to have lots of fun and you're not going to worry about it. So
I
I
love
think
that.
it's just you make the best of wherever you go.
Yeah. I feel like that is something that, one, the sooner you learn, the better off you are
Absolutely.
in like military spouse life, but also just like the better off you are in life. Cause I feel like, and obviously this is just my perspective. I understand that like I haven't watched everybody in the world, but from my perspective, when the whole COVID thing hit, the people who were doing best fastest, not that we didn't struggle, but the ones who were able to kind of recover from the initial blow fastest were my military spouse friends because they already knew how to be creative and make the most out of a a shutdown, of out of a
Yeah.
huge life event that just rocks you. They were able to just turn on their creative eyes. Whereas like now, I feel like now that we're what, 6 months, 7, 9 months, I don't even know how to yeah, that whole like time thing. There's
Yes.
even pre-COVID and after COVID, but like now I'm starting to see more creativity. And while nobody wants this to stick around, they're able to make the most out of it more now. And again, that's just like my perspective. That's not the law and gospel or whatever.
Of
But I
course.
just thought it was really interesting. Like, okay, well, it makes sense because we have to get up and uproot, and you just have that choice each time. Like, are you going to make lemonade or are you just gonna squeeze lemons in your eyeballs? Like, I feel like that's how I feel like that's how some spouses are sometimes. Like, I don't know.
They're
Have you ever?
determined to not be happy sometimes,
Yeah,
and that's what makes it tough. Like
yeah,
you have to choose happiness, because if you don't choose happiness, it can be a very tough life.
yeah, yeah. And every time I say that on Instagram, somebody's like, but there are like, like chemical imbalances are a real thing and with depression or whatever. Like, we're not talking about if you have that. We're talking about when you're dealing with waiting warrior circumstances that come up, you have the choice. Um, what to you has been like, what are actual examples of choosing happiness?
Well, I mean, I can go back to Fort Irwin, right? I chose to be happy there. I chose to seek out friends, to not stay in my house, to not dwell on the fact that I was living really out in the middle of a desert. I chose to connect, and I think that's something that it's I've done every place I've gone is I choose to connect, and every place has been a little bit different. We were stationed in Toronto once, and it
Mhm.
was after leaving Fort Irwin where I had all of these amazing friends, and so it was a very hard move, because although I went from the middle of the desert to this big sprawling, city
Yeah.
of Toronto, Canada, it was the hardest move because I was surrounded by people but still lonely. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking, like, okay, I don't have a military community to plug into. My husband was the only American Army officer that they had sent to this thing. So I don't have a military community to plug into. And so I started taking baking classes at the local rec center.
That's
It
cool.
Baking wasn't my thing. I sought out and chose happiness. It could have been, and it wasn't an easy year. I'm not saying that I was skipping around, thrilled to be in Toronto for that entire time. But I chose to pull myself out of my house. I chose to find other people to connect with. And I chose to teach myself a skill at the same time, right? If
Mhm.
if I can't have friends, I might as well learn something while I'm here. So, and I made a few friends. It wasn't the same as it was before, but it's never going to be the same. And if you try and compare it to something else, you're going to be disappointed. If you try and
Yeah.
compare it to some high point, you're going to be disappointed. You got to treat them as individual experiences and find the light in each experience, I
Mhm.
guess.
That's solid advice. I feel like we could just have that like be the whole episode, but we need to talk about Operation Deploy Your Dress. So
We did
I know
it.
I was like, okay, we're gonna focus here. Okay, so what is Operation Deploy Your Dress? I'm assuming it has to do with clothing.
It does, yes. So Operation Deploy Your Dress was actually co-founded by myself and four other Army spouses almost 5 years ago, back in late December of 2015. We wanted to do a dress swap, which is not necessarily uncommon on military installations, where you collect dresses from your friends and neighbors and then you swap them with somebody else so that you can have a new to you dress to wear to a ball and not have to pay a lot of money. We were
Yeah.
trying to find a way to boost the attendance at our military balls coming up. We had 3 different units that were having military balls, and we wanted to help boost
Mhm.
that attendance, and especially in the junior soldiers and their family members. We
Mhm.
wanted anybody who wanted to go to these balls to be able to go, and for cost not to be an issue for them.
Yeah.
So we started collecting dresses from our friends and neighbors. We got a little bit of national media attention really quickly, and we thought we'd collect a couple hundred dresses, put them up in a community center, give them away on a weekend, and then go back to our lives.
Yeah.
And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, the national media attention got us a few thousand dresses instead of a couple of hundred dresses from all over the country. They started flooding in.
Wow.
You should have seen my basement. It was like
I was
a
gonna say,
wall
where
of
did you
dresses.
put them?
Yeah. So then we started panicking, like, well, what are we going to do with all of these dresses?
Yeah.
We don't have enough time to put them up in a community center and distribute them in one weekend. Like, what are
Yeah.
we going to do? And so the garrison commander there was there at Fort Bliss with us at the time. He said, hey, this gift shop just shut down. Go ahead, use that, distribute your dresses, do good for the community. And then once you're done with your dresses, then we'll, repurpose that space for whatever.
Yeah.
And almost 5 years later, that space is still not a gift shop. It is a dress shop. So once we realized about 6 months in that it was not only a need, which we knew it was, but a desire for the American population to help us, we said, let's see if we can do this someplace else. So I was PCSing to Virginia. We took it to Virginia. It worked well there. So then we just kept spreading. And so we are now 10 shops in. We're about to open our 10th shop in Germany. So we're going international as well, which is exciting. And, it's such an amazing thing because we get to work with spouses clubs at each of the installation to bring this program to their communities. We get to work with so many military spouses that see our vision and have the same love and desire to help their community that we do. And so they're willing to run these shops at those installations. And a lot of times military spouses don't have time to work a full-time job, but they're able to volunteer with us, but get real world work experience that they can then put on a resume. And when they do have time to work a real job, they've got that experience. And so we've had spouses that have taken their experience working with Operation Deploy Your Dress, turn it into careers. And it's something that we didn't expect to happen. We didn't expect to be able to be helping people build a resume and build a career on top of giving somebody a dress to go to a ball. So these dresses are formal dresses to wear to military balls, to wear to homecomings, proms, things like that. They're completely free. It's not a borrow and return. It's yours to keep. So if you need to alter it, you alter it, whatever. And it's been donated by dress companies and individuals from all over the country that just want to help the military.
That's super awesome. So what are the 10 places?
So Bliss, Texas, Fort Eustis, Virginia, JBLM, Washington, Fort Irwin, California, Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Stewart, Georgia, Fort Carson, Colorado, Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Drum, New York, and I'm going to butcher it, Kaiserslautern, Germany.
That's amazing. You're literally like north to south and east to west. That
east to west, and now overseas, which we're really excited about.
Yeah. Jump over. That is incredible. Like giant round of applause. So if somebody like needs a dress, is it, because I know some things are like rank wise, is there rank qualifications, or can anybody go and do it? Do you accept from just anywhere? Can you tell us kind of all the things of if somebody is where you are and wants to participate? Is that the right word? Participate.
So if you happen to be in any of those installations that I named off, you can look up that installation, Operation Deploy Your Dress, on Facebook. So Fort Carson - Operation Deploy Your Dress, Fort Bliss - Operation Deploy Your Dress. Look up that location - Operation Deploy Your Dress. You can reach out to them via Facebook and send them a message and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer, or hey, what are your hours? I'd like to come in and shop. It is not rank dependent. We never wanted it to be dependent on rank. And once we realized that we were going to have such an outrageous support of dresses, and that the inventory would be able to support all ranks, we knew immediately that it needed to be an all ranks program. Largely because we want people to use it. We don't want there to be any kind of stigma attached to receiving a free dress from Operation Deploy Your Dress. These dresses are amazing, first of all. So you'd be crazy to put a stigma on it. But we've had everything from 4-star general spouses proudly wear Operation Deploy Your Dress dresses to E1 spouses who this was their very first experience in the military. They didn't think they'd be able to attend a ball, and they were in tears because I remember this one girl calling. It was on our grand opening here at Fort Carson, calling her husband in tears because she had found a dress and he had told her she wasn't going to be able to go to the ball because they couldn't afford it. And she found a dress and she was like, I can go to the ball now. And she was in tears. And you know what? This is her first Army experience. So her first Army experience could be, I get to go to this fun event and interact with other people in this unit, or I get to get left behind while my husband has to go to some mandatory fun. Yeah. And fortunately, she got to go to the event. And so it can very much shape somebody's perspective on this lifestyle as well. Mm-hmm. If you're not getting left out, if you're not Cinderella getting left out of the ball, then you might be more willing to embrace the not so fun parts of the Army when you get to participate in the fun parts of the military.
For sure. So what if somebody wants to donate?
So to donate a dress, you can go to our website, operationdeployyourdress.org. And we have a little map there that you can click on any of our locations and it'll give you an address. And all you have to do is pack up your dress and mail it to that location and we will process it. Our volunteers will get a thank you postcard back to you that with our tax ID number on it, and it will be put into the inventory for somebody to choose.
That's awesome. The whole like concept and idea and how you guys have executed it and grown it and just continually helping people just makes me like really, really happy. And I love that you guys are doing it like so much. Balls are so much fun. Like I love the balls. I love them so much. That is okay. So little story. When I met my husband, he was in the ROTC class at the college we were going to, but he hadn't signed on. He ended up enlisting and then joined ROTC later. But he asked me to the ball after we had been dating, and it was at the ball that I was like, oh shoot, I love this guy. So it's like, this is so happy and bring me back. And no, not all the balls are like, ooh, we're gonna fall in love. Most of the time, you probably are already married to them, but they can be so much fun and as magical as you make them out to be. And I love that you make it just that much easier for anybody to do it. And I just love it so much. I can't
we love it too. We love it too. If it wasn't fun, we wouldn't still be doing it almost 5 years later. So
that's true. 5 years and like 10 places and across the country, like that cannot be a simple like thing to run, like so how
we work hard behind the scenes and especially most of the people who work at the national level aren't getting to do the fun part of working in the shops and deploying the dresses and seeing the smiling faces. They're doing the not so fun part of the tax side of things and the bookkeeping side of things and the SOP writing side of things. But it's what's required to make this run and to bring this program to so many installations. And we're happy to do it because we get to see to this point, almost 12,000 military families that we've helped. And we get to see the impact that it's having on units morale because people are able to participate in these things, or on a spouse's morale because she has something that's hers that she volunteers in every week and it isn't dependent on what her service member does, or it's just something that she does for her. And so although we're behind the curtain working away, making the wheels go and not always getting to see the fun things, it's the overall picture of why we continue to do what we do.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, last question, because fine, we have to end. I can talk to you for a lot. But what is your key to thriving that you want to share with your fellow waiting warriors?
So I think I've spoke on it a few times already during this interview, but it's absolutely community. Everywhere you go, you find your community, whether it's one person or 20 people. And it's not going to be the same at every installation. Some installations, you might just have that one person that's your person. And you do everything with them and you go to lunch every day together and you start a nonprofit with them or whatever. Or it may be a group of spouses that you go running with all the time and you go on girls' weekends to run half marathons. I'm speaking from experience in all of these things, by the way. It's it's finding what the fit is for that time in your life and that place in your life, and making sure that you have that community that's going to help you, because unfortunately you never know when you're going to need it for a hardship in this lifestyle. So it's great to have them to go through all the fun and laughs and smiles with, but it's also great to have them behind you when something else very unexpected happens. Yeah. So it's it, community, 100%.
And I will add, just remember that like we all have that drunk pixie. So like something bad will happen. It's not, oh, well, I don't need the community right now. It's like, no, drunk Murphy pixie will.
The second you think you don't need the community is when drunk Murphy pixie is going to knock you right on your butt. So be ready for it.
I like just even the visual like makes all the crap so much better if I just some.
You're welcome.
So much better. Well, Yvonne, if somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that? I know you told us all the operation deploy your dress things, but what about you? If somebody wants to say thank you, if they want to talk to you a little bit more, or what's the best?
Yep, absolutely. So I have a Facebook page that is 2020 Armed Forces Insurance Army Spouse of the Year, Yvonne Coomber, that you can go to. You can find me on Instagram at Evie Coombs, EEVEE Coombs. And then honestly, if you go to the Operation Deploy Your Dress website, if you send an email, that comes to me. If you call that phone number, that it's not my phone number, but it comes to me. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So, and I love hearing from people, and I love connecting people. I love answering questions. I love this lifestyle so much that I am happy to do what I can to help somebody who may be struggling or maybe just has a question. It doesn't even have to be a struggle. I'm happy to be there and help.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Waiting Warriors, please reach out, say thank you. If you are in a place that Operation Deploy Your Dress is, please check them out. Even if you don't need a dress, make sure you spread the word, because I know that is like, it's just something that even if people don't say that they have as a struggle, like that's not normally someone shouts out on the rooftop, so just spread the word regardless. And if just all the things, make sure you say thank you. Have a good week. And guys, remember, just because it's hard doesn't mean it has to be miserable, as Yvonne has very clearly taught us and shared with us. Thanks again, Yvonne.
Thanks. Bye.
If you love Red Friday, remember everyone deployed, but you don't love the selection of apparel you're seeing at the PX or online, I'd love for you to check out my Red Friday designs. You can see them on Instagram. There's a link in my bio, or you can go to teespring.com/the-waiting-warrior. I'll put that link in the show notes. There are styles and sizes for everyone, from your father-in-law to your dog. I'm serious. I also, if you get one and share on social media, I would love it if you tag me, The Waiting Warrior, so then I can cheer you on in your countdown for deployment and see how awesome you look.